Whenever y'all are ready, you may begin.
Cool. My name is Pamela Cordero, just Pam also.
I'm Sarah Williams, and we did our presentation on a drink known as ayahuasca. What is it? I'm sure a lot of you have probably never heard of this. Ayahuasca consists of two plants, the Psychotica viridis bush and the Banisteriopsis capeliana. And all a liana is, it's just a type of vine that specifically, both of these plants actually are native to Central and South America, and they're pretty common. Like, you just go out and get them if you live in that area. P. viridis contains the infamous chemical known as DMT, and then the B. capeliana contains beta-carboline alkaloids. A little more on both of these. DMT is a serotonin agonist, which means it stimulates the serotonin receptors. DMT it's kind of present in the human body, kind of not. It's found in cerebrospinal fluid in humans. This is a really common myth. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard this, especially if you're into sort of researching drugs. But DMT is not released at the moment you die. It is not released up to that point at all. In fact, endogenous DMT being produced in the brain and causing psychological or hallucinative states is based purely on speculation and untested hypothesis. DMT is also known as the businessman's drug because it causes similar hallucinations and highs as LSD and shrooms, but in like a fraction of the time. So it's kind of like, you're on the go, you want to see God, but you have to get to this meeting in 20 minutes. So, take some DMT and be done with it. Let's see. DMT is not actually orally active, which it kind of seems like, well, why would you put it in a tea if it's not orally active? That's where the beta-carboline alkaloids come in. They are a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, and monoamine oxidase is what would normally break down the DMT if you ingested it orally, but since it inhibits those monoamine oxidase enzymes, it lasts for much, much longer, and it actually takes effect through the tea. And that's all I have for that song. How it's made, you can see I have a couple pictures up there. The one on the right is the process of it being made, and then on the left is what it looks like when it's done. They're boiled together. Specifically, the vine stems of the bee cappy are beaten and mushed together, and then they're put at the bottom of this cooking pot, and then you put leaves on top of that, and then you put more vine on top of that, and then more leaves, and so it's kind of like lasagna, but not really like lasagna. It's just a lot of layers. You add water to that, as much water as you can get in the pot, and then you leave it to cook for 8 hours until most of the water has evaporated, and the sort of return rate on that is say for example you put in 40 liters of water, you would get 1 liter of ayahuasca out of that. So it's you don't get a whole lot. You gotta conserve it. Yeah, sounds good.
So then one of the important things that come with this is how long does the trip take? How long does it take to affect the body? One of the things is that it takes around 30 to 60 minutes for the effects to actually start settling in the body, and then afterwards the peak would be around 60 to 120 minutes, and it lasts around 4 hours. Compared to DMT is a ridiculous amount of time. DMT usually, those kinds of trips are 15 to 20 minutes, so 15, 20 minutes compared to 4 hours of going through that, that's crazy. Then there's physical and psychological effects that come with it. There are physical changes such as a change in brain activity that are noticeable, such as increased blood flow in the prefrontal and temporal brain regions, and the inhibition of monoamine oxidase, which allows the DMT to reach the central nervous system, which that's one of the reasons why it is an extended period of time. There's also nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and modified blood pressure, which is something which we'll go later on more into detail in the presentation, but it's part of the purging process, so they actually encourage nausea and vomiting because it's almost like taking out all the bad energies of your body, all the bad past things and everything, and just kind of going in with the new good things that will come with ayahuasca itself. Then there is the psychological effects. There are alterations in sensory integration and awareness. This one, for example, there's a lot of like prolonged hallucinations and a lot of personal like experiences. People have said that there's like demonic walls covered in gnashing teeth, abstract neon images. Or there was this woman who she had a addiction to alcohol, and she said that Mother Ayahuasca herself was pretty much like when she was doing the purging with the vomiting and the diarrhea and all that, it was kind of getting rid of all the bad things that caused her to have that addiction to alcohol. That's how she saw it in her trip. Then there's also antidepressant properties. Like around 36 to 46% of the people during the day that they experienced after ayahuasca, like they, sorry, I keep having to clear my throat. The day after the ayahuasca ceremony, they experience like less stress, less depression, and they usually like remain low across all the stress and depression after the month. And then there's some people who have actually experienced some prolonged effects of having less depression and stress after taking ayahuasca. There's also a study of 40 adolescents where they consume the drug in a religious setting, and they experience also lower frequencies of positive scoring areas such as like anxiety, body dysmorphism, attentional problems, compared to like a group that had a similar psychological profiles but that didn't take ayahuasca at all. Then there's also changed worldviews. There have been multiple interviews with people who have taken ayahuasca where they have claimed that the substance causes a changed worldview and a spiritual insight, as well as a more positive outlook in life. Upon being interviewed a year later, there was no evidence of psychological maladjustment even after taking ayahuasca. So, like, it was still a changed mindset, but there was no negative side effects to it, like the prolonged, taking it. And then there's treatment uses for ayahuasca. This was something that was really interesting when I was looking at it, because one of the things that you were talking about when it's like, have there been research with like mushrooms, for example, and treating like depression, anxiety, that kind of thing? Actually, in Canada, they're doing something with MAPS. It's the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. And they've been mixing psychotherapeutic techniques of South American shamanic healing practices with the traditional, like, the DMT aspect of it, like the medicinal aspect. And they're so they are trying to see if they can go ahead and fix, like, not fix, but improve, like, negative effects of, like, addiction, compulsive behavior, and self-harming thought patterns. The results from it where that there was a significant improvement in mindfulness, empowerment, hopeful and quality of life outlook, and quality of life meaning. Even though this research has been done, of course, this is actually pretty new research. Like a lot of this, the psychedelic studies have been recently like approved. One of their main things is that there needs to be more research done for it to you take a research, you have to go back and make sure, well, is this person getting the same results as I would if I did it? So they're trying to tell people, hey, do more psychedelic studies to try to see if it can help with addiction, depression, anxiety, and stress. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, there are a lot of religious uses for ayahuasca. It's usually the most common use of it. Because it takes so long to make. It's not necessarily a convenient recreational drug. It's also illegal to import. But I just sort of highlighted the main religious societies that use it. The first one, you've got Santo Daime. It's a Portuguese word. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. It was established in the 1930s, so a fairly new religion. They use ayahuasca as part of their that means works or ceremonies. This is like a syncretic religion, and all that means is that they kind of take a bunch of elements from other religions and mix them together, such as folk Catholicism, Cartesian Spiritism, African Animism, and indigenous South American shamanism. So you got a lot of stuff in there. It was founded by a man named Raimundo Irinuçera, He was a worker on a rubber plantation in the 1930s, and while walking through the jungle, he experienced intense visions and like sort of spiritual hallucinations, and he shared that knowledge with the people around him, and like found indigenous people who made ayahuasca already as part of their indigenous religion, and he used that as sort of like a cure-all for people who would bring them, they're like sick and wounded, and like it would help them. And the early practitioners of this religion were actually mostly illiterate, so there's no sort of beginning text like you would get with Christianity or Islam. It was all through hymns that they would make up and sing to each other and memorize, and those are kind of considered to be like the main text of the religion. The vomiting aspect of ayahuasca, as Pam mentioned, is incorporated into their religion. It's seen as a purging, getting all the bad stuff out so you can have more room to put good stuff in. It used to only be in Brazil, but now it's become a worldwide religion, and it started to expand in the 1990s. And they believe in harmony, love, truth, and justice. So a lot of good things. And then the other prominent religious society that uses it is, I call them the UDV. I'm not even going to try on that one. It was established in 1961 by the gentleman you see on the right. His name is Jose Gabriel da Costa. The name literally means union of the vegetable, which makes sense because ayahuasca is made out of two different plants that are mixed together. They drink it as part of their religious ceremonies to enhance mental concentration and focus on spiritual salvation. They're a Christianity sort of based society. They're more focused solely in Christianity instead of all the different religions that I mentioned last time. They seek to promote peace and to work for the evolution of the human being in the sense of his or her spiritual development. That's a direct quote from Mr. Jose. Currently, there are 18,000 members of this religion, 200 local chapters with members in the United States, Australia, some European countries, and Peru. The fact that this is a Christian society is kind of, are we like way over?
You're good, yeah, I mean, you're done out of time, but go ahead and finish
Okay,
up, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have a really bad habit of talking too much.
That's fine.
Just to like summarize on this, they brought the issue of ayahuasca legality as it pertains to religious freedom to the Supreme Court in the United States. They were the first ones to do so.
Which will I'll go pretty quick. The legality, pretty much ayahuasca itself is an uncontrolled substance. DMT is the one who is a Schedule 1 drug. So if you're using it religiously, then it's perfectly fine as long as you get that stuff approved. But if you're not like under any religious order and you're trying to use it and you say it's religious, then you can get into a lot of trouble for that. Like jail. Then there are some court cases where it's like the UDV sued because they were using it religiously. Then after that, the circuit court had, the New Mexico Circuit Court had prevented the drug from interfering from, like the government itself from interfering from the UDV's use of ayahuasca. And then afterwards, the government appealed that. So it was kind of like a back and forth the entire time until finally in 2004, they lifted the stay and allowed the UDV to use ayahuasca in religious ceremonies. So now that's why ayahuasca itself can be used religiously, but you have to have proper paperwork for it. So it's pretty interesting how that stuff works out. Then there's personal experiences, which this is the last one. A lot of people experience ego death, ego dissolution, which means it's almost like, I don't know if a lot of people have heard of astral projection, which is like almost getting out of your own body and seeing yourself, kind of like that whole mind and body thing that we talked about in the beginning of class. It's like almost like the mind itself is separate from the body and you're looking down at yourself and like everything that you've done. That's why a lot of people think about like their past experiences during ayahuasca, because it's, I mean, imagine you're looking down at everything, your past and your possible future. Then a lot of people have also talked about how it's like almost like a near-death experience, because again, you're taking everything that you've done and everything that you will do later on. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys want to like do.
I don't think we have time to show videos, so that's okay.
Questions? Yeah. I just want wanted to mention that you had said that about maps, you know?
Yes.
And that is, it's probably either going on about right now, I bet it just finished or something, but there, I told you about the psychedelic science, conference. It was a couple of years ago. They have it every year, but it's like a 3 or 4 day conference where they basically study the effects and on treatment, on, you know, of all these different kinds of substances. And so you could go there. They have people that are psychiatrists. It's really pretty medically oriented. So they have a lot of psychiatrists, medical doctors. They also have psychologists. But if you're into this stuff and you wanted to go spend 3 days learning all about it, learning about the cutting edge research about it, there is that conference. And it sounds pretty interesting. Let's see, I wanted to mention DMT. Yeah. Can you, I don't guess you could buy DMT off of Amazon, can you?
No.
Okay.
Very restricted. It's a Schedule I drug. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
No. We kind of skimmed past that part because we ran out of time, but no.
I mean, no. I know some people who have like gotten DMT, but even that stuff is difficult to get, especially around here. Like you have to be in a main city.
Ayahuasca is not regulated, but the DMT in it is regulated, which makes ayahuasca legal, but the DMT in it illegal, which is weird.
It's really weird.
Is DMT, can you buy it in a white powder form? Are y'all familiar with that at all?
I didn't do a lot of research into DMT.
I know you can
because
smoke it. Is
Yeah,
what a lot of
yeah.
people do. They smoke DMT, which is
Yeah.
you can pretty much take it any form, honestly, with DMT. It just, some of them are going to last longer, but most of the time from what I've seen from DMT, because I've done some, I just like searching up drugs, it's like you have to take the hit, and every single hit takes like 15-20 minutes of the effect. But if you want to get the threshold, like break the threshold, you have to take at least 3 hits is what it is most of the time. So it's usually smoked.
Okay, so you sort of take it, bump up to that level, take
and
it,
then bump up, and then bump up.
up.
Yeah, because I've heard that when you break the threshold, that's what they experience. Like, it's the same experience of ayahuasca where they're talking about like mother ayahuasca and like same pretty much meeting God or some like really high being. That's what they mean by breaking the threshold. It's like you've lost yourself practically. Like most of the time you have to, not most of the time, you have to have a sitter. Like you have to have somebody who's there, who's not doing it, because most of the time you just like drop and you can't do anything. But like, I mean, if you ever want to watch anybody in ayahuasca, it seems that people seem to move more there and like talk, so it seems more like how LSD would usually physically affect the body. It was very interesting. How it's like still DMT, but somehow it changes it based on how you take it. I don't know. It was cool.
All right, well, I actually have more questions for you, but I'll let y'all put y'all off the hook now. So if y'all, any other questions for them? All right, well, thank you very much. Thanks for